where we go to community schools to do them. What's the idea of car? How do we bring something? Black person doing what when you do the kinds of give answer what they think about sacrifice to the person loves and the right is something we are for the same reading parts of the whether it's certain culture thing out of the word changing humans change the more order changing words one of the cases human understanding most of we go efforts planning words for giving the values to change changes so when you use those won't have anything I think it's first conversation about the problem that way or things that happen around is person loves from the shooting happiness and responsibility but other makes this now also the deals so that way you have to feel less around you will also think that will make you want to the sacrifice know what the takes you and put yourself first and what does it mean to become party to a joint structure built by the occupied space that demands most recognition and erasure? The so-called American dream to sustain itself through racialized minds. The 18th American dreams not copying American nation state, central and fierce ideology, chop across borders, losing creative places, demanding on object, breaking a parasite with nation, and actually rising people in the model, but minority ethnic horror, design, black countries, political organized purpose of political correctness. Or maybe to become party to can mean something else, or refusal to assimilate, a reclamation of subjectivity. The choice to assert presence within a space styles never designed to hold it. Here's the dilemma. The church of the Union decided to sacrifice the shadows of the be okay with the direction of the between choosing God and Jewish going to say that the first mark sacrifice all the way the way facing the world direction all the way the holiday, the right to accept them to sacrifice taking the whole correction of the sacrifice and Jewish on fixed time they view the compelled to make the church to show the organized say the word to the top of them to be judged all the something never asked to go to also how about you and the resolution has offered us the choice to choose the Orientalist Convention, OIL 17, lost the returning over China, officializing German lost what he has with the Scandinavian innovation, asking China, these has go there, North Carolina, First Secretary State, the rest of the Royal Part of the China, China's propagation, but the Chinese neighbors, all the song for China, China, separates on them, the China Oriental, the similar to the rest of the US obscure base, no deliberation, no sorry, but the students, the China neighbor, Canadian China speaking donors, and the versions of the US and over the men, the human see that the world rotors that use necessary you saw your dimensional rest of time stability legal all the rest any for the US will take or the basic report say 21 over the racial capacity card again for the black American die stronger than any ocean of this world for the ice turn as genocide as the only accessible racial for the joint for the application of racial and assume the ICC and social about relation racial the actual signals and racial for the national presence on the global justice solution by my involved racial question discovery even the small account of the ICL production rate of American authority of the ICC just government with the city racing that ICL the racing series by racial troops reach across the voice of addressing action it's the racialization of instead, given the choice between two evils, or refuse or assimilate, the U.S. is not the sole arbiter of water. Those should not give us maps so that one artifact of the Asian development water should the central dynamic of the Asian interaction between their those receive different shapes of communities in commercial world, because formation is under the water, the water is made of the unsaid societies as consumed water and counteract the Orientalist race reform paradigm justifies the accumulation of capitalist productivity. Rose 13 also trying again on one year from here to your palace idea about North American Middle Eastern last year about landscape which affected our environment meets to normalize the environment and the forced appearance of the American dream extended the church of the Asian body raised their voice and never-ending work for that both Asian Americans in and silently down slowly precarity, both precarity and positive opportunity. To achieve the Asian Americans burnt out times and thousand were forgotten, even existence cities that Asian American forced all the way down, you body pushed over, you skin silent station feels like holding a better way for some notice things that's so much that you all notice to pause the way anti-Asian is in America's less India, China, who started those in the visible, I think about answering instruments of the word, H forces to swallow the cheers coming until the heart of the desert words of all the things, but Master, I said you use that threat, I'm coming out of the on the website, you use takes you and it's supposed to have central object. Those are the anti-Asian, all of them in reality, some gave out to utility, and I'm going to go. I think I started talking over the anti-Asian, hate Asian Americans, learn more desperation of American tornado experience, having gathered in terms of several wanting it, Vincent, Rebecca, that parents will come and reject the argument of between reality and game. Because 90% to understand the personal life of the takes you seriously, never just oriented to the reproduction of Western relation, given every real life, nobody confident, positive, starting, versus body, all play proofs of bit of illusion is playing from forms of ordinary reality, extremely play ruling as an irrational reality of appearance and rules that don't give material, all according to the constant imaginary, sort of racial content, williams, and playing as imagine possibilities of account, what is the reality, just the game I was only playing, and what can parents of class regularly do when a road is already burning? How 20 hours of continuous actually morning mentality make mass services event from the stars have including a one who walking park most teams with codes to get eviction and discovery card running without weird decisions down to one millimeter card half the license Americans and force the Chinese virus have no one inside your friendly neighborhood. And this violence creates a condition for the proportionally highest suicide rates among any department of African America. We must reform intimate psychological impacts. So, suicide can cause the death of Asian American immigrants to the US central between the Asian mental health and cultural identity, Asian value interventions over independence, and the Asian shading, reality perception of not the Asian American society, the US Americans that are professional borders living the US American ground, building abuse with look, what's society, conflicts, social, and stuff like that, cultures, education, and willing to invest in the Asian Americans to get help. And In other words, the rent for conditional freedom or live forever in the margins of racialized coding. We choose the drown Tokyo, the 16 code, we choose one shape nation, how do we see the nationalized racialized supremacy through race attracting to the US racial idea position, why the variation of a from origin, less critical, when it is visible, black and white discourses surrounding race and grizzly to say about everything believing this Asian Americans of and have a style which the nation protects anxiety to certain internal threats going into the nation of Asian ethnic groups, as such other framed as foreign threats, independent, ethnic concept Asian Americans, framed Asian Americans themselves, Asian Americans taking identities to be political or all in comparison to other groups, more less American, more so less these humans are the same time going all back to the model minority representation Asian Americans, hardworking American dreamers by anyone who puts out enough effort like just sort of and this is why some spirit by the Asian Americans, the narrative also commit the US is American society born of its enemies and times war. Yeah, we don't actually, we don't, yeah. Okay, what is that look like? Sure, the idea of Jack here is premised off the movie, where in the movie they choose the main character chooses to love himself first and like society. Loving himself first. Sure, the idea that the premise of the K is that Asian Americans are forced into assimilation into the society that doesn't want them, and would say that it's better for Asian Americans to love themselves and not have to work for society. Sure, we'd say that, or like we'd say that doing a plan, for example, is a forced assimilation. We'd say that any plan, because the plan is good. What's the specific one? Or sure, we'd say that that's the only evidence. We say that unclose is expressed like Orientalist rhetoric about Asian people, and we say that. How does it create forced like assimilation? Because you're forced to, because by reading plan, you're forced to like say that unclose is good. Okay, yeah, because about Saul is by creating moments of precarity, which is the same evidence. Sure, where instead of like being certain that you're going to vote for a white norm, as in like T framework, for example, voting that creates moments of precarity by breaking down traditional structures. Moment of precarity, like uncertainty. So uncertainty, how does that solve the violence that you face? Yeah, sure, because currently there's very like strong and stable systems in place to like make sure that like Asian Americans are heard. We say moments of precarity allow for change. That's the thing on the technical line for. The Wheel 16 part, it's basically just talking about like stereotypes that Asian Americans face in school. How is that a referendum attack like the debate space? Or should we say that the educational space is especially key because like education teaches, like for example, the current status says white spaces would prevent white supremacy through racialized practices. They would say that the debate space is a white space that seeks to uphold white supremacy. We say that voting. Do you want this? What? Do you want this round? Sure, I guess. Okay. Why is it important? Or it's not the ballot is the more important thing. We said the ballot allows for change, and if we need people's ballot, then sure, I guess. Okay. That's fine. I guess how does this deliver social or sure, we say that the voting will create moments of parity, which will allow for social change because just go back to that moment of social parity. How does this specific individual create a moment of parity? Or sure, we say that in like society, when you're like taught something, like you're not unsure, you're sure that what you're taught is true. But okay. When you read this app before, why did those moments that they're very or sure, we'd say that we need multiple moments, like it's not one read the app and then suddenly like all Asian Americans are like okay, I'm thinking well case. Don't say. Yes. Wait, you want? Oh, okay.
Population order with valid provisions to kind of couple paying access to the federal government, non-private entities in Japan, taking sort of units into information for federal government, they carry consistent with this, given ratification of the federal government of the US, non-government entities becoming party to a treaty requires a confidential and United States entity become party to a treaty. They must expect a confidential and to be bound by the treaty. No, they reject the resolution. Two impact versus passive fear of the democracy their rule for the neg, which causes concern and undemandable and unconditional waters with tacit constraint testing terms are often set up as better to comply with these to achieve the most compelling applicants to the topic either for predictability as well as substantial trivial. Two is fairness to make this game a little bit fair, difficult spaces points key to any less correct positionally balance of the game like one balance and solve this regarding his fair balance controls every aspect of the performance and debate expectation such as disclosure etc. Certainly will unfairness to and really will tend to feel for getting to be good already to that he also did into never to the possible regarding deficits against the method. No fair procedural effects feel lots of opposition doing the way they make the game possible to suspect effectively seeing you vote have to reject that process of living the solved in this saying that we will solve the same and regardless of being happy for the times a good debate not for anyone involved non-USG absolutely commercial theory for small speaking marketing single self advocacy prevent any basis for potential negative game impossible and incentivize ownership is independently not specifying the act of voting issue possible debate and we can have civil ones in clash and who does their advocacy which is those cases counter advocacy. They have no office. First, beauty impact of the process on part of the indication impact about the content of the corner solved by reading a bulk of impacts to what is unique to debate two specific debates that are paid is being taught through the reading the actions of the on the names that get all the witness offices application of forces that's such a better argument three. No negatives to get accomplished you can form the ways to call this on an individual level while voting. Negative your balance referendum of who did the better for being not cast from the truth of the arguments themselves 14 days salted the bread and after the fact I see the method prosecute more against nation of the law especially after former laws and the response to the perfect for any ground they have worse than that have controversies in the many wins they get a hollow which is on policy and but the ground said Rome actually is the US to be held accountable for this war crimes against Asian nations which correspond to themselves and then fourth one three it's just trying to say ICC Russia crimes against humanity are meaningful crimes against Libya and all crimes against humanity crimes against devastating crimes in Asia more random disability and everything for the people and reach crimes against humanity crimes against humanity into local crimes against you so around these other crimes against people to nobody's installed in security to live on cells to the dead giving the review of the debate the global law of debates versus non-global revolution social changes debates the real world are often inactive rather than absolute trying to Alex with theories of how rather than getting to with the things you debates and the turn of review of the bachelors the return of the you can have the conclusion of people said me important people say you say radical extremes have to say the most extreme these are nuanced for sure because of loose communication and sometimes the truth evil and my competitive games of the 15 sensations all their offers projected have terms first season starting from running society which is what every single negative position says there's nothing unique about the call of violence with the cafe your case turns down also you know that office putting should benefit or stupid office is normal for you to do anything or normal in conversation because you can just spend the confrontation is better norm second off. The affirmative is a radical start from revolution and politics the one seeking place politics of political politics and chiefs or the broad based constitution doing its names or traditional power relations but affirmative that's so welcome common to consider performance radicals of accelerating the liberalism of coming our political space for this is about government change 316 here is the line of the revolution just was the war or radical position to democratic sound assembly to really rubber tactic with everything this matters we're asserting that it's already done in the politics ability for rallies on political base politics for the people of class of everyday resistance to the thing important and populations ubiquitous all political movements are rare performance for national order political to protect the justification for presidents fantastic politics and promotional thinking of the structural instances and enable anyways they deny the movement over station political significance of the structure to examine the significance of the eruption the direction necessities variation of the historical specificity political dynamics in order to sustain the fundamental continuity and understanding the fight against engineering depressions mediated by class institutions that must be taught to egalitarian political projects rather than individual consciousness raising its institutional political potential 17 before my experience of knowledge theory but the recent false and function of moral structure and explanation for disparities and system and people who use it often alone ways that can fight and attack racism the idea that the people values of valuable that the try to learn to prevent the relations to the total global 17 from the liberal sort of racial restriction of the state of the civil rights movement and found the situation the immigrant second tree black federation with long to power there but something made it possible to inconvenience this discourse of the exclusion discussion and certain material advances to crisis for specific set of policy plans for national action principles capital to general capitalists to short term domestic peace and movement while and persuade over the change of the universities of police to the capital to the as a very conversation specifically make less of the right conference we're also more likely to develop economic consolidation system federal labor culture part there capitalism causes massive quality of representation this to be honest with this is the issue for concern before whole concept of the globally increasingly demand given social situation revealed by raising for quality of the population of the loss of today these real things are required rigorous class analysis and the capitalism and competitive capitalists humans analysis and this entire class analysis that efficiency engage in marks alternative human Australian Revolutionary Socialist Party only movement organization passes strategic authorities and global liberation and survival and the rise of the social transformation. House 16. The local struggle with the society of such people that being unified the Colombian movement is society to transformation organizations to those states necessary organizations do not exist in vacuum politics about tactics history and theory. We are necessary today. We are the starting point of support elements working class leadership or exist about connected theory with the strategic synthesis and the practical guide to action experiment with the advanced application to opposite and both and presented to them except for being training and debate positions without proposals are useless. Workers can become large beyond the conversion to the level of responses will listen as well or revolutionary socialist party is that student in addition to the capitalist workers possibly less single practically the tendency that we capture on case. First, the army and roll the judges to vote the better debate who represents tribally or precisely acts as words small debate that allows us to limit the practical impacts of the politics which gives the capability that allows each of two of negative consumption they must with individual debates impacts of dictated that is impossible. Outcomes of French family religion for years that way speed is empirically wrong every round that we have won lost being policy proves that idea that normal changes because they follow sea balls change on people who lose real children and situations and technical error nothing in T-balls. The arguments of course will believe C which said against structure solve and against instead of the other side for attachments to the C is policy it is inevitable. Most everything policy loses. Please completely wrong to be seen as a problem, not actually not a viable solution. That should not signify boosting trauma is the best validity of referendum identity as ancient debaters cultivated with the win-loss record is indicative of the word the valley not remedy this. Most of it be a statement of people's individual identity. So the court does not assume debate or conversation are ready to reform or technical executions. And limits is also certainly worse for exhaustion limited complications to cover some information debaters and other common judges or judging debaters not speeches which always worse. They must nice Thursday term second analysis zero logical empirical basis they can be set up and realizing this is the community considered scientific terms on today. Coverage not provided for the toward the relevance of politics application announced insertion and exchanges the linking of lengthening theory to the constitution to be able to remind us to be areas of the same regime that never using that in alternatives policy perspective fails to understand appreciate the truth perspective is reactive to the less truth but what is their relation to others and color of the theory so on color of this culture to this public there are total claims wrong but not that they're the post system of melancholia that is thought to escape which one true political change is possible by 19 Asian Americans are the community last to for us to be your constitution energy, reach this whole milestone for the engagement in Asian American and support by major political parties and business number of Americans also allows the participation of practice will be found in the sense of the treatment of the organization law for confidence of the immigration reforms. So on class. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes.
On TV, why are your definitions predictable? Why are your two definitions predictable?
You would say that the only predictable states we can have are the words in the resolution. The United States is in the resolution.
So why
two definition in the resolution?
Why
that is why our definitions are predictable. They are also like
so like your interpretation of the words. Why is that predictable?
We've read definitions about the United States. Defining the United States and even referring to those are the words in the resolution. You want to provide a counter definition of those.
So I would say why are your cards most like commonly used and most predictable?
Because it is defining the words in the resolution are the sources that are also there that they're trying to understand. It's also about this the part out of 10 is also from a court case, so it's nothing that's predictable. Those court cases are important. Second is the United Nations that is from the courts and obviously they're referring to this topic. So those are cool.
If I like grew up in a different in a Mandarin speaking household and my interpretation is differently, why are these definitions predictable to you?
And so what is the question?
Sure, if I had a different upbringing than you, why would that make these definitions predictable?
That wouldn't change it. That wouldn't change the words in the resolution.
No, but the interpretation, obviously, I'm not saying like
it's not my interpretation, it's the definition I'm reading of the words.
Okay, sure. On the ballot.
Say that you would have a different upbringing, but
Sure,
change the words in the resolution.
It's not cause I guess. On the ballot stuff, have we affirmed like something's politics while voting against it?
How can we affirm politics while voting against it? We're saying that we can agree with their politics, even if every single thing you said is true, the ballot does not reflect that, you should go negative as a net benefit at the class.
Okay, cool. On decay, what's the link?
Sure, it's the Can 15 card. It's saying that right now, because I mean the whole thing is just March K, but Asian American oppression goes by this individual conscious, like this intellectual conversation about Asian melancholia is false because it doesn't actually materially help people and it doesn't address the root cause, which is capitalism that leads to racial class.
Why is capitalism the root cause of Asian American like psychic violence? Actually never mind. On case, can you explain about
The ballot not remedy. Yeah, so if you've said that there is psychic violence, the part about high suicide rates, it is incredibly journalistic and offensive to say that this individual ballot could solve that, or that it is a reflection of an individual's identity as a speech leader. That is a terrible model for the judge to arbitrate, because it becomes just a reflection or a referendum of our identities as leaders rather than speeches and the arguments that we've said.
Repeat that for like less.
Less okay. It just should not be a statement on our individual identities, our racial identities that a judge, Asian or not, would be able to arbitrate. Because the law firm becomes a reflection of your worth as a minority and as a leader, which is bad. So the ballot cannot solve it, and it's actively oversight.
Okay, 5 minutes for this time? Very crazy. Ace.
Vote after John Hooker, we're in presumption. We don't want to wait for a topic that you conceded is orientals. Everything taken out should use a simulation. At the end of the 2 hour, ask them what you're voting for, realize that it's okay to not do something. And when you're asked, oh, we're scared to vote for you, question why yet, until all this, that's the seeing evidence and moments of independence are when we're vulnerable, other creates conditions for like that's the moments of clarity that lets Tokyo drown. Their presumption arguments are wrong, still the racialized double standard, white policy debates don't need to win it, but we do. There's no alternative academy. When we protest, we get shot. Competition is the choice you choose to be competitor, not listener because of imposition on framework on the limelight said roll the ballot. Sure, I'm not saying I'm Asian, so vote for me. So there's on presumption it was factor on the lead wrong. These are not restating says educational base is key to actual change because that's how white supremacy is events. It's all on ballot. It's not a remedy. The ballot doesn't tie the K doesn't tie your identity to the ballot judge. We identity a problem and we have a way to fix it. And that is for voting for us on homogenization. Though it's not fallacy. The one institution of the school. Not saying homogenization is good. The alternative is never being able to analyze each one of the economies which means violence goes unnoticed. They said psychoanalysis. We don't make psychoanalysis claims. We also don't make melancholy claims. We also don't talk about the global south. On D. On the exercise stuff, we specify an accurate view of the judge voting app. Framework or impacts of procedural truth. The ballot solves fairness because shows ballot the game can solve racialized violence because recognizing problems of the game is a logical to allow the tuner to go for defending the topic good without putting the topic itself because the job, but all the topic makes me the topic obviously is bad. In fact, this debate out for others to ballot cannot solve because chaos and so that are inevitable, but it ignores or reject unethical performances which means hours of ballot proximity. One way the case our world is burning down. That's when I see how Asian Americans the highest rates among any recent Americans. That's when you see Louis Bears and Clash or irrelevant when the game is already so structurally unfair to the automation side. The insistence that game-based frameworks are the also reason why Asian debate, why we do ignores anterior modes, why we public space encoding Asian debaters as hyper-competitive subjects. The impact is microaggressions were treated as unfeeling robots. That's 1 NC fickle. 3. For our practical opponents, instead arguments like vote negative, agree with the app or preserve banners, CBA, switch side, or force codes between that only failed to force internal reflection, but ethically blackmails us into leaving our identities behind and debate the way they want us to. 4. Instrumentalization. Decide whenever we deviate from the status quo, we're ethically blackmailed by being called unpredictable, forcing the affirm of white community that norms that nothing about legal precision is predictable to Asian debaters who were born in China, yet were forced to endlessly labor for preserve a game that was never fair to us. Uniqueness controls memory, often see as a restriction of content, and should be seen as humanity's spirit of change to be willing to risk it all for hope of a better future. Unfairness is one regressive between the coin to decide debates and actually outweigh everything to all causes. Resource disparity, coaching, judge bias makes it perfect fairness impossible. 3. Racism, the most unfair, the idea of hostile product resumed at the endpoint, but debate, but voting negative fairness does nothing. Flip their back calculus. At best, they solve a little fairness in round. The voting app promotes dissent in all future rounds. On the ballot click thing fails, it requires voting app. Also, how disagreeing with scholarship work, but you also vote against it. On the fairness paradox is definitely fake. I don't affect judges because I want perfectly fair evaluation. I affect judges because they're more likely to vote for me on Flash using an internal link. The content they want is not what flashing over and monetizing or app. It's about world movement building or collective organizing, which is not valuable for our method. On the TVA definitely can't solve. The whole point of the app is not assimilating to Western norms. The TVA is bending the app to fit into Western norms. Definitely fails. SCE fails because for being specifically app is key to unpredictability and not conforming with anti-Asian norms. Also, even then, more precarity is still better. Even if you achieve precarity on the net, it still has to be better to on the app too. Said reject impact currents. Yes, impact currents. Your model it causes bad side effects such as microaggression. You can't just ignore them. On the cap pay, yes, firms agree with this method debate. But when our method is compatible, we should vote apps. Criticize the hard to solve. No premise. Average hard listening with cement press the power structures. Framework weight. The link versus the apps practice. Key to revolutionary testing. You link you lose meaning the theory. The also the ivory tower theorizing, which turns the office and net benefit to the firm. We are responsible for all of capitalism, which means the link is zero at best, and we combine with our method result psychological violence. There's no root cause. Desire control creates the conditions for capitalism. They can't explain why they force Chinese immigrants to leave after they construct railroads for them, which proves much goes on racialized lines. Also, permanently both turned up line and all of the things assault links that can cause the case. 3. Low link and permanently both the act is individualized. Our method opens the debate, promotes unfairity, and creates communal distance, generating energy for the all. Continue unions that like bonds now means the app is deciding to change it and enacting the odds.
Say that conceive topic makes it means that. Yeah, we say that voting we don't want to label for a topic that conceive sense. Oh, it's like a but this is saying that like the debaters who like have Asian parents and grow up in China, that like definitely not relatable to us. And all of us in particular is at the level.
Thank you. Yeah. Starting with K, I'm not going for it. It is relevant because he's a hard question because it begs the question whether it has to be read in the first place. C. Debate is the game. The ballot will reflect who played the game best. Clash, the only unique portable impact of debate has no value without it. Well, the app may be correct, but the current state of debate voting app does nothing to resolve these issues. You must follow the model that we agreed on prior to the tournament starting out. Now, the review technical that should frame your ballot. First is that they messed up on the ballot pick. You can agree with their politics and method, but vote negative as a net benefit after clash. Our consultation said that you can't reach or act and said you simply cannot win, which answers all of their exclusion offers, which is contingent on their model of debate. Now, saying the ballot is key, just to return the clash off the term is probably going to say that you should vote act to affirm Asian scholarship. That independently is a bad model. You subjected on face. The judge should not be the opportunity to affirm Asian scholarship and entrenches the power leads where still underdog, where Asian people are still under domination and rely on someone else for their scholarship to be true or valuable. There's no way to assess how many instances of affirmation are key to solve. This was conceded in the process. It's completely arbitrary because they have read this affirmative multiple times, and nothing has changed, and the impacts have still not been resolved. So you certainly should not vote. You certainly should not vote affirmative unless they provide you a specific right line in the 2AR. Now, the drop of your non-restriction on the content of the debate, just restriction on which content is tied to the ballot. That filters out every single one of their impacts in turn because they're about restricting certain content and not offensive implication. They can still read it, it does not win on it. Two, it's really dropping the question of long-term implications of every model. Debate is a game of inches, so you should not have a model debate that looks like in the long term. My memory is limited to means that in-round implication impacts will be only matter of your repetition. Even if their pedagogy is valuable, so is listening to podcasts. It does not mean to listen to that in every single one I see. They've also dropped the solvency filter for every single impact. And impact terms must have uniqueness. That means in order to prove that they solve their impacts, we're going to weigh the totality of their offense and justify why their model is good because they have to first have to win. They need to win that their model of debate actually happens first. They also mess up on switch side debate. It filters out a majority of the offense because you prove they can just read the affirmative, the critique on the negative, which resolves all of their offense. It also answers all the exclusion offense. So independent switch side debate should frame your ballot. It proves that you only need a 1%. It proves that you only need a 1% risk of clash to negate. Their answer this was completely non-unique. They just said that it's worse for them to be forced to read it on the negative. They did not ask to give independent reason as to why that is. I'm assuming the counter-interpretation for your ballots must be tied to the hypothetical and the whole resolution of the plan. The impact is clash outweighs the absent unlimited is predictable stasis point that all allows students to run off contestable positions that destroys the activity. Even though we try to make different reasons like competition research and incentive over the whole activities, the value debate is the back and forth we get only on one debate promotes iterative testing that straight turns their offense because generating controversy and clash forces the debaters to refine their arguments and generate beliefs to become more revolutionary strategies, which was conceded. Their answer destroys it because first the model is any ancient or any piece of critical liturgy would be topical under the model, which certainly destroys predictability. Zoo is ground we lose every single day because the model gets rid of any counterfeit dissets or alternative critique methods because it would simply just be able to say representation, which is also draw increased predictability. Even if there's a risk of negative ground for their determined, it's still not predictable. The resolution of the key stays point because we would certainly voted upon and widely publicizes determines the reason and impact that we do. Our model of debate is certainly best and not justified why the model good, but also succeed for the app, reading TV, and the next doing for the app's current advocacy of the debate that is best because the app can leverage communication, the neg, incentivizing for specifically that solves service and better for nuance research arguments. I'll do the line here. Versus saying the clash of fairness is not structurally unfair. It's certainly wrong. Only we make arguments in the context of debate. They've also conceded that they rely on fairness too, where to make the arguments they want. They hold speech terms to exploit technical concessions inside their debate. Not simply not function without it. If they wanted to talk about racial inequality, that would not exist without fairness. And clash was the only portable skill, or it was the only skill we have for debate. Clash case debate that was done about. Now we're not going through answer. We're not going through fairness, but I will also answer our case or also independently words for fairness and reproduce psychic violence. That was also dropped because unlimited critical literature or unlimited no limits on the topic also means that there's an unlimited preparation for Asian debaters, which is independently worse and also can lead to exhaustion or burnout. That was also independently dropped. So if you're simply voting on norms, you simply know that their model is worse for debaters writ large. Next was instrumentalization. They said that the predictability of attorneys wrong. Our definitions are predictable because they're from the dictionary. This was the back and forth with cross-links. It makes zero sense. As definitions are available the definitions are available online. And no matter what, if you come from Chinese parents or not, those definitions are still just words in the resolution. That does not change, no matter where that does not change, no matter where you come from. They're giving you zero words as to why having Chinese parents means that you have a different interpretation or different upbringing. That does not change the words in the resolution. We all obviously come from different backgrounds, but we all research the topic, which is why you should prioritize the model that prioritizes fairness and clash the most to give us all the best chance at winning the debate. You also certainly know that they've conceded that they've come here to win this debate. You know that it is a competition. That was cross-links. So you certainly know that the only value you get out of this is the value. You said that the moral preparity is better. This certainly does not make sense. They have not actually explained what preparity means or what moral uncertainty means. This is where this is how you know that the TVA is better. It's the only thing that will actually has material implications for Asian people. Now, so this is not this refutes the thesis of the thesis of the affirmative, but you certainly know that the specific card we read also changes the way that legal frameworks think about Asian victims of war crimes only by being able to sign on to ICC from the US being able to sign on to ICC. That certainly means that we will be able to prosecute countries or be prosecuted ourselves for war crimes against Asian leaders. That changes the way that Asians are also represented in our legal frameworks, which is certainly good. Now I'll go on to the KPK. All of that was dropped, so you certainly know that if they didn't say KPK, you certainly know that all alternatives are certainly worse. But they dropped every single preamp. Even if you think framework is racist, that is not the argument, but independently wintered it because we proved that class is less racist in the first place. On case, absolutely at zero. Remember, they should value every single debate argument through this lens. It brings the infection in every single piece of evidence. It's will extend the subjectivity onto the term here. It is certainly not true. You cannot turn the presumption arguments because they dropped every single one that there are many all causes from a debate that far away change of politics, beliefs, and family, friends, religion, the rest of your debate career in the next 80 years of your life. It does not matter. You do not actually have to subscribe. But this means they have no results. You do not have to subscribe to a topic. You can still read all that. Well, that's all. The term also going to be this. It's spelled out.
Great. I'll take my main issues on 27. Right.
Remember, plus assumption only makes sense. They extended the reason why debating this specific topic is good. They conceded the phrase to become party to is not neutral, but a form of force assimilation to Western hegemony, where we must choose to join empires request the Mount that does not belong to them. They also conceded literally all the other topic links like the oil evidence and the similar evidence means that this debate, so they cannot gain audience on the clash. They concede that this topic is bad. Thus, we choose to drown to get from the sooner questions are salty as often the same evidence moments of independence will make life possible when you send a ballot and aren't certain what you're voting for. That viewing of vulnerability is the moment of precarity that allows you to break down traditional norms they have described to us and let Tokyo drown on the line by line. They say you can't impact their perception, but yes, it's because they conceded topic, which means that topic is bad, means that we don't want to labor for it, but it's also relevant because RT opens up layers on T. We don't need a winner counter if we are rejecting competing models and win that their model is fine. The only drones all their options that their definitions are predictable, but the word winning it's not. I'll go on the predictability stuff. You're saying that it's on the internet does not mean that it's predictable. Tons of things are on the internet, but just because they specifically said it's from a U.S. court case, Asian debaters are the one immediately think of U.S. court cases when they think of these words means that it's not predictable. But I'll extend our offense here. Extend the case it was dropped. The impacts of Asian suicide versus their impacts here. Winning that our method precarity breaks down white structure and allows for social change. Various and clash cannot outweigh their model causes real material deaths. They drop the automation day, and this side I'll extend it here. Their claim that debate is a game, and we're competing literally at the start of the tune are proves that this side one AC Figo paints a clear picture about how within games Asians are seen as high competitive robots because of their drive to win. The tuner insisting that debate is a game proves that this side and endorses a micro-aggressive model of debate because Asian debaters will always be seen as robots and treated as subhuman. This was dropped. They also dropped the congressional reporters said they're going for the TVA and ballot proves that this side because whenever I debate the way I want to, they refuse to let me. They call me unfair and tell me I should lose, which is ethical blackmail and microaggressive because they are literally saying my identity is not allowed in the debate space framing. You have perpetual quarter, which means that these are two pieces of job framing design. Means that you go after preventing microaggressive environments, but. Sure, I'll do more line by line. They said on the ballot tape, they said the ballot is not tied to anyone's identity. I'm not saying I'm Asian, so vote for me. I'm saying well, I've identified a problem that can be solved through precarity. I already explained precarity. Reject arguments saying that we don't know what precarity is. I just explained to you. They say on fairness, we're not saying fairness is bad. We're just saying that's not the most important thing. In fact, they job through framing this that proved by outweigh microaggressions now. Microaggression outweighs clash because accessibility outweighs. If you're not here, you cannot experience any benefits of clash. But on clash, they drop that. It's just an internal. They concede the topic leadership. Mean that debating about the topic cannot be good, but the topic itself is violent. They said it says the clash solve the app better. That's not true. They dropped that some homogenizing error isn't a revolution, which means that's not key on the TBA. The app is better because the TBA cannot locate precarity and cannot solve psychic violence. And either way, you vote after reject microaggressive forms of debate.